I have not done European rundowns in a little while, but like all delinquent fathers, I will return at some point to get your hopes up, and that is exactly what I am doing here. After 7 rounds of Champions League football, we have been treated to a spectacle. I already made fun of Manchester City getting dump trucked by a couple of elves up in Norway. Shout out to Bodo Glimt. I'm not shitting on you guys. I actually love you and really appreciate all you've done in Europe. I talked about it in that other video a lot, but this was a pretty wet and wild Champions League round of matches. This is the penultimate round, so it really tees us up for what's going to be the final day. So this video will be as much about teeing you up for what we're going to be seeing on that last day of matches in the Champions League as it is recapping what's happened here. This is moving day. Basically, you got 6 matches. We've been marinating on 6 matches played for a while, and now you have the opportunity to jump up or not. The first opportunity was taken by Club Brugge. They went to Kazakhstan. They beat Kairat Almaty 4-1. That can be a tough away day. This keeps Club Brugge alive for a spot in the knockouts. This is where they land. They're at 27. Here we land business. They're probably going to need to go win on their final match day, but they're at home against Marseille. And based off the way they were playing coming into this Champions League section, I would say Club Brugge actually has a very real chance to be able to do that. There's Bodo Glimt beating Manchester City up in Norway, which is great for Bodo Glimt. It not only keeps them alive, you might have peaked them right here. If you watch the other video, you already know that, but it spices things up for Manchester City. They're down to 13 points instead of up on 16, where most people expected them to be after this road trip, meaning they are very much right on the line of, are we top 8 or aren't we? For Manchester City, that is going to come down to a final match against Galatasaray. They're right here. You see the best team in goal difference with 13 points is PSG up in 6th, all the way down to 13th with Atalanta that is on that same point total. So this is the big swing group that's going to be swinging back and forth on what should be a wild final day. Copenhagen and Napoli, though, we start to actually lock in on matches. This was insane. Napoli should have put this away. They have been dog water the entirety of this Champions League. I do not know what they're doing. Copenhagen, this is not even this is not your daddy's Copenhagen that a couple of years ago was getting into the Champions League knockouts or finishing ahead of Manchester United in the Champions League, which it turns out wasn't that hard to do at the time. Scott McTominay, speaking of that Manchester United team, scored the goal after a Thomas Delaney red card in Copenhagen. Napoli was not able to extend it, and then a penalty rebound for Larson makes it 1-1. This had to be 3 points for Napoli. It's unbelievable that it wasn't, just bitterly disappointing. 19 shots to 5. All this XG is coming from the penalty and then, the rebound that Larson was obviously able to put in. Napoli was all over them. This is a win that would have gone a long way, because look at where these teams are, right? If Napoli wins this, they're going up to 10 points. They're sitting nestled right underneath Qarabag in the playoff right now. Shout out to Qarabag for being in the playoff position. They did what they needed to do. They did what Napoli couldn't in this particular moment. Now, Copenhagen being able to gut this out while missing a player for an entire hour is huge for them too, because now they are right on the switch point. There are 5 teams on 8 points. 3 are in, 2 are out right now. Right, Club Brugge, Bodo Glimt, Benfica, Pafos, technically, Royal Union, Saint-Gilloise, and Ajax are all going to have an opportunity to jump into that realm, but Napoli and Copenhagen are going to be the feature of who can get to the knockouts. It would be, especially after their winning run last year in Italy, it would be ridiculous for Napoli to actually miss out on Champions League playoffs altogether, but they would have nobody to blame but themselves. They have just not executed that well. Inter is who they are. Arsenal is murderous right now in the Champions League. They are playing the best football of any team in the Champions League, and there is still the very real possibility Arsenal is the best team in Europe. They are not the sexiest, right? People say that I'm too hard on Arsenal for not being a sexy team. They're not the sexiest team. Right? They're not going to be Barcelona out here flying around over everybody, but the sexiest does not necessarily mean the best, right? Am I the sexiest YouTuber? No. Am I the best one? Obviously. So, Arsenal could very well be the best team, and they showed it on the road against Inter. Inter is once again a team that will beat all of the teams they're supposed to beat. Give them this, they will give their opponents the opportunity to lose it themselves. Arsenal is not a team that seems particularly willing to lose matches. They have guaranteed a top 8 finish. They are excellently positioned. They are one of 2 teams now that is guaranteed a top 8 finish. They have won all 7 matches. They have conceded just 2 goals in those 7 matches. No other team has conceded less than 6. Do you know how ridiculous it is to have 4 less goals conceded than your next closest opponent in that regard in Newcastle, who has 6 goals conceded over that time span? They have conceded 2 goals. And not only have they done that, they've scored the same number of goals as Bayern Munich and PSG, who have the most goals of any team in the tournament. They're the best team. It's not particularly close. They've gone out there. They have executed. It is not easy to go to the San Siro and win. They went to the San Siro and won. Right? Inter will give you every opportunity to lose the game. They're not necessarily going to go out there and win it. They'll give you every chance to lose it. Arsenal turned down that chance. As for where Inter is, they are on 3 straight losses to plummet out of the top 8. They will have an opportunity in the final day with a kind of swing match against Borussia Dortmund. And that swing match will open, if they win that, they go to 15 points. They have a chance to jump up to the top. Arsenal is on cruise control. They're at home against Qarabag Almaty. That's right. Arsenal hasn't even played both their pot 4 matches yet. They should be able to play their backups and be completely comfortable. That is an incredibly rare luxury for them. Huge win for Olympiacos. 2-0 at home against Bayer Leverkusen. Leverkusen's had a huge turnaround this season. That turnaround has run into a brick wall. Now, I pulled the stats up because it is very worth mentioning. The Bayer Leverkusen played well in this match. It was just one of those matches, right? This is just one of those moments where the atmosphere and the way the team is able to execute in the final third in one end and not the other makes the difference in this match. But what a massive win. If Olympiacos had lost this match, they would have been virtually officially eliminated from competition. With the win, they are in 24th. Bayer Leverkusen, by virtue of their huge struggles earlier in this tournament, they had 7 points in their last 3 matches coming into this. They are still not safe. They're playing Villarreal, who is one of, if not the worst. They are definitely the most disappointing team in this tournament, by the way. If you're wondering where they are, they're down here with 1 point right next to Qarabag Almaty, 15 conceded in 7 matches. They have lost, I believe, 6 in a row. But I don't remember exactly. So Leverkusen at home should be safe, right? Would be very surprised if they didn't at least get a draw from that, and a draw would very likely put them in a safe position to be in the knockouts. So not into the world for them. Olympiacos is going up against Ajax in a desperation match, as Ajax is also trying to play its way into this point, but we'll get to them. Real Madrid beat Monaco 6-1. This might actually be a blessing in disguise for Real Madrid because they're actually trying. This is something that I feel like they haven't done for a while, but they've let bygones be bygones here, and they are playing hard because they want to prove all of these people talking shit against them wrong. 2 goals for Mbappe, Mastantuono, own goal, Vinny Jr., Jude Bellingham. Check it out on the JB5 app, ladies and germs. 6-1 over Monaco, who had been looking pretty good in this so far. There's only their 2nd loss in 7 matches for Monaco, but they are not safe. They're going into their final match day on 9 points, and they have a little tasty tie against Juventus that is going to definitely be spicy. So, Juventus is playing for potentially a shot at top 8. They're going to try. There's stuff to play for on both ends here, and if things go against Monaco and they get stuck on 9 points, there's a very real chance that they miss. So that was definitely not a match they expected to win, but a bitter pill to swallow. Sporting reaches its highest high since Ruben Amorim has left with a 2-1 win at home against PSG. This isn't going to get the attention of the Man City loss to Bodo Glimt. Very similar effect, though. If PSG had won this match, they would virtually be guaranteed a top 8 spot. Instead, they fumbled. They lost to Sporting, who now has given themselves an unbelievable chance to finish top 8 in the Champions League and get a bye in that round. They are going to Atlético Bilbao on that final day. They're going to need at least a point. Mathematically, they're probably going to need even more than that in order to get into the top 8. They're going to need a win there, but they've kept that alive. And most importantly, they've guaranteed they are at least in the playoff with this win. And, you get a check for a couple $1 million every time you win in the Champions League, so that's always nice. This is a really fun match in the last 20 minutes. All goals happen in the last 20 minutes, so the winning goal coming from Sporting after Kvaratskhelia had tied it up. Luis Suarez, not that Luis Suarez, the other one, able to get on the end of a rebound that wasn't dealt with particularly effectively. And that is what sends Sporting into they're tied. They're tied on points with PSG. At this point in the tournament, that's pretty remarkable. A lot of people have been calling for Thomas Frank's head. He delivered a tour de force with a 2-0 win against Borussia Dortmund that gives Tottenham, a now perpetually European-focused club, the opportunity to finish top 8 in the Champions League. Remember, Tottenham is only here because they managed to win the Europa League last season. That is the only reason they are in the Champions League, and now they have a chance to finish top 8. while being terrible in the Premier League continuously. They go into their final match day at Eintracht Frankfurt. That is a tough European match, but Eintracht Frankfurt, they've been really, really sneakily bad so far in this competition. So that is looking like Tottenham's going to be able to lock up a top 8 finish after this win over Dortmund. Dortmund's really let it slip. Just a point in their last 2 matches after drawing at home against Bodo Glimt the match before. You would have said that they had a pretty good shot at getting something off of Tottenham, even though it was on the road, and even though Tottenham had done well in this competition, because Tottenham's just not really playing well. It's not like you had a lot of European momentum coming into the January European window here. That Dortmund's now slipped down to 16th. They should be safe. Mathematically, they're not, but the goal difference basically separates them. They are basically, more so than any other team, stuck in playoff purgatory. They're just going to try and become a seeded team. Their final match is going to be at home against Inter. They can get at least a draw. You would imagine they'd probably stay in the top 16. You have no idea how this is. You have no idea how this is going to play out. All of the stuff is on the table. And then Villarreal, the big yellow submarine over there in Spain, they lost 2-1 to Ajax. Ajax has revitalized itself. They were the worst team in the Champions League for a while. Everybody was piling on the Ajax grave. Well, guess what? They go down 1-0 on the road. They find 2 goals, including a 90th minute winner from Edvarsson. That's Oliver Edvarsson to you on the cutback, and you can see the Villarreal fans are not a good season for them. They're not having a good time. But that goal for Ajax has injected life into a situation that there should not have been life injected into. So great late goal for Ajax. If they did not score that goal, they were already out of the competition. Okay, they had no points in their first 5 matches. They won at Qarabag. They won at Villarreal. It's tough to go on the road in Europe, even if it's Azerbaijan and even if it's Villarreal, who's just been bad. Then they're one of the 4 teams that is officially eliminated going into this final match day. Still, Ajax has done remarkably well, right? Look, they've conceded 19 goals. That's tied for the most with Eintracht Frankfurt and Kairat freaking Almaty. They've been terrible in this European campaign, but they have found back-to-back wins, and they're alive. Life is all you need. They're at home against Olympiacos. If they beat Olympiacos, they just need a lot of draws and losses from all these teams around here, and 9 points could be good enough. They're not going to fix their goal difference. It's too bad, but 9 points could be good enough to get you into that top 8. Unthinkable for Ajax to pull themselves off the canvas. They would be the first and maybe the last ever team to lose their first 5 matches in the league stage and still make it out. Like, that's just the funniest stat of all time. But we go to Wednesday. These just went down. Galatasaray against Atlético Madrid. It's been a very weird European campaign for Atlético Madrid. Both these goals were early on. Atlético Madrid doubled the shots up and had 1.43 XG to the 0.5 of Galatasaray. But it wasn't enough. Like, Atlético Madrid was bad at the start. They had 1 win, 2 losses. You're thinking, are they going to be able to finish up top? Well, then they go win 3 straight. Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, Inter, PSV. Then at Galatasaray, which again, it's a tough away day, right? Playing on the road in Europe is difficult. LO Manchester City. That puts Atlético Madrid in the absolute logjam of teams on 13 points going into a final match at home against Bodo Glimt. The Bodo Glimt also needs to win. You'd make Atlético Madrid the favorites there, so they're definitely a threat to be able to get into the top 8 anyways. For Galatasaray, the draw is huge. Gets them 2 points away from the drop. Final match is not an easy one. They're going to Manchester City, so they're probably going to need that cushion to get in the playoff. A hurricane of shit would have to happen for Galatasaray to not be in the playoffs, so they should be safe. They're one of the very few teams that's just in a safe position. Meanwhile, Eintracht Frankfurt fumbled their chance to pull an Ajax and try and come from behind here by losing at Qarabag. Now, I marvel at Qarabag's ability to just continuously score goals. They have scored so many goals in this competition, it's actually absurd. They've scored 13 goals in 7 matches. Like, they can't defend for shit. They can't stop anybody. They've given up 15 goals in 7 matches, but they score goals. They make things happen, and this win puts them in the same category as Galatasaray. They would need a hurricane of shit to happen to keep them out of the playoff. This team came into this having never won a Champions League match. They've now won 3, and it's just a remarkable story. I mean, against a legit team in Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, that's a good team. That's a European trophy winning team in recent living memory that has been competitive and in Europe for a long time, and so is Qarabag, but not nearly at the same level. We're talking about a team that plays in the Azeri League, right? To be able to score that many goals in itself is just crazy to me. Because I know you're looking for it. Here's the goal straight at Azerbaijan to win 3-2 and virtually send. Like, if they don't score this goal, they're at 8 points. Remember, this goal puts them at 10 points and virtually locks them into a playoff spot to play in the Champions League knockouts, which means somebody like a Manchester City, a PSG that could accidentally fall into those playoff spots is going to have to go to, Azerbaijan in the playoff. They're going to get to host that kind of competitive level match in the Champions League, which is crazy. Here's your I'll try and get the crowd goal. It was after the ball had been cleared away from the corner, and Qarabag's able to find the winner from Mustafa Zada and beat Eintracht Frankfurt. Eintracht Frankfurt needed a win in that match. If they'd won it, they would have been on 7 points and had a very real chance to strike at the playoff positions, but now they're out. Huge win for Athletic Bilbao. They go to Atalanta, they go down 1-0. They're in the locker room down 1-0, then they put 3 goals in over the course of 16 minutes in order to kind of run away with this. Pretty vintage Bilbao performance in the sense that Atalanta had most of the ball. I put both of these teams usually in a pretty similar category. Obviously, Atalanta, can't just use guys that grew up 5 miles from the stadium to win, but these are two teams that are not considered giant European clubs, but that compete at a very consistent high level here. But the reason I say this is a huge win is if Bilbao had lost, they were virtually out. This win puts them at 23rd going into the final match, which, as you know, is against Sporting, who's playing for that top 8 position. Well, Bilbao is playing for its very life. If it can win at home against Sporting, which is clearly not a very easy thing to do after their win against PSG, then Athletic Bilbao is going to be in the playoff after a very, very disappointing start to proceedings. They lost 3 of their first 4 matches. But it is not over until the fat lady sings. And that fat lady is not taking Ozempic, and she hasn't even begun warming up her voice yet. Atalanta's loss, dropping them to this 13-point pile. They're at Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, which is definitely a match that Atalanta could win and be a surprise team in the top 8. Huge sirens, dude, all day. Trying to record this stuff is insane. I don't know what's happening out there, but clearly they have no concern for the Zealandism. Bayern Munich against Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. A couple of second-half goals for Harry Kane. Iced this one. Kim Min-jae, notorious for making a dumb mistake every now and again, got sent off in the 63rd minute. Royal Union Saint-Gilloise not able to take advantage of that, so Bayern Munich coasts into being one of 2 teams clinched for a top 8 finish. They'll be able to rest on their final match day at PSV. That's probably good news for PSV too. Back-to-back losses have sent Royal Union Saint-Gilloise plummeting down to 31st. They're going to need to win at home in that match against Atalanta I was just talking about in order to take themselves into the playoff. They're going to need that, and they're going to need help, but they are at least still alive. Kind of disappointing whimper from a team that I thought was going to do a lot better, a team that I thought was going to do a lot more than they ended up actually doing. Chelsea sees away a very stern test from Pafos, 1-0 in the 78th minute. Moises Caicedo ends up breaking the deadlock. Pafos showing a lot of heart, but the back-to-back losses have put them in the same pile with RUSG, Ajax, Benfica, and Bodo Glimt, who's obviously come here by a very different road, and so has Ajax. Pafos has only scored 4 goals in 7 matches. That's tied for the lowest with Slavia Prague. Good news for them. They fucking play each other. Probably going to be a giant snooze fest, but if Pafos can find a win, they go up to 9 points and give themselves a chance, while Slavia Prague's trying to win their first. They're one of 3 teams without a win. At least they have 3 draws of Villarreal and Kairat Almaty. Both have 1. They're just playing for the money. They're playing for the win. They're playing for that little bonus you get. Pafos still has a chance on the final day, and they would have shaken your hand off for that at the start of the tournament, so not bad. Chelsea, meanwhile, with the win, is firmly planted on the 8 line. Their goal difference is in a pretty good spot, and their final match is going to be at Napoli. Napoli, of course, is playing for its ever-loving life, so not an easy spot for Chelsea. Even though they're in 8th, you look at a team like Atletico Madrid that's hosting Bodo Glimt. You look at a team like Atalanta that gets Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. City's got Galatasaray at home. Barcelona's got Copenhagen at home. I'm not real comfortable in the top 8 if I'm Chelsea, but the good news is if everybody wins, Chelsea's in, right? So if they win, they give themselves a chance, but they have a much harder win to get, in my opinion, than a lot of those other teams. Juventus beat Benfica 2-0. This was bad news for Benfica. Good goal for Weston McKennie, my American hombre. Kefren Turam got the other one, both in the second half. Juve's been out in the wilderness for a couple of years as a club, not just in Europe, but in Italy as well. They're trying to find themselves, and I'll be damned if they haven't. Right, they have won 3 straight matches. They had 3 draws and a loss in their first 4 matches. It was not looking good. They have ripped it off. At Bodo Glimt, at home against Pafos, at home against Benfica. Those are the matches you should be winning. And Juventus is just taking care of business. They have an outside shot to get top 8. They're probably not going to get it. They need some losses, they need some draws, and they need to obviously win at Monaco, who's playing for their life down in 21st right now. So you're probably looking at a Juventus playoff round appearance, which is about where you would have picked them at the start of this whole process to begin with, I would think. For Benfica, they're in a troubling spot. They're in that pile of 6. They need a win on the last day and help. The most troubling spot of all, though, is that they are playing against Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid, maybe earlier in the season you would have had a shot. Now they seem to be playing super pissed off, so I think it's curtains and good night for Benfica on a chance at the knockouts. Liverpool showing some life, showing some hands, winning 3-0 at Marseille. They went to the penitentiary. They came out with the 3 points, and they are virtually guaranteed a top 8 finish. All they got to do is not blow it against Qarabag at home on the final match day, and they will be fine. Very solid win, and that means Marseille's a little uncomfortable. They won back-to-back matches against Newcastle and RUSG to put themselves in a better spot, but now they're sitting as the highest goal difference team on 9 points. So if you do get some wins from your Napolis, from your Olympiacoses, from your Bilbaos, from your Club Brugges, like there is a chance that Marseille could cascade all the way out, but that chance is well less than 10%, even though they're on the road against Club Brugge. Marseille's still going to be looking in a good spot. If they'd won this match, they would have been looking for, higher seeding, maybe the seeded part of the draw or the top 8. But now the seeded part of the draw is still reachable. All they have to do is get into the top 16, and that's still just a bit of a gap that they're going to have to close. Like if Dortmund wins, you're going to have to catch somebody on goal difference up here, not just win a match. So it is a little stratified around there right now. But a very nice win for Liverpool going on the road. Newcastle delivering a suplex, a bomba clot bomba on top of PSV. 2 early goals, domination from Newcastle at home. PSV got absolutely washed out of the stadium here. You saw those XGs as I was clicking through. They got XG'd by like more than 2. They got waxed, and this is a big win for Newcastle because 1, they hadn't won in 2. They lost to Marseille. They drew against Bayer Leverkusen. So this puts that momentum back in their step, that pep back in their step, but it puts them in the top 8. Right? Newcastle getting a bye, getting that straight trip to the round of 16 of the Champions League is great. 2 less matches your team has to play. You get to advance a round without doing anything. You get the extra paycheck from advancing that round without doing anything. Final match, though, is PSG and Newcastle. Winner of that match is top 8. If they draw, it's in the hands of others. We'll see what happens. Right? A draw and a Tottenham loss would obviously allow both these teams to move ahead of Tottenham, not depending on anything because the goal difference is already there. So, I mean, you're in a beautiful, perfect position. It's clean. It's clean at the edge of a knife. One of these 2 teams will not be top 8. It would be a big surprise if Newcastle could go to PSG and win. Then again, they did just lose to Sporting, so anything is possible. Then Barcelona went to Slavia Prague, played a fun one. Right, this was 1-0 Slavia Prague and then 2-2 after a Lewandowski own goal. Wasn't 3-2 Barcelona until after the hour mark with Dani Olmo. They finally powered their way through to a 4-2 win. Slavia Prague has been fun. They've drawn 3 of their 7 matches that they've played. They've been competitive in a lot of them. The win for Barcelona was necessary, though, because they had been fumbling their way around a little earlier. They've won now 2 straight, and that puts them right on this line where they're playing at home against Copenhagen, a match that if they win, they are basically going to be in. Think, PSG and Newcastle can't both win. So if they win, they're going to jump over one of those 2 teams. A win and you're in situation for the top 8 for Barcelona, and they're a talented enough team. They should be there anyways. But that's what the state of play looks like going in to the final set of matches in the Champions League. Can't wait. And we got like a million European matches going on today, so enjoy those.